Hello and welcome to the Sports Hut podcast, where we bring debate and discussion on all things sport. First of all, I'd like to take this time to thank you all for following us on and liking us on Facebook and Twitter, and all the views, over 100 in our first video, which we're all very chuffed with. Today we're doing a nice wee transfer special. Monday night brought the close of the January transfer window, so we're going to have a brief discussion on all of them, and I think the best place to start is, unfortunately, we're going to go to James. We don't want to spend too much time talking about Celtic, but they are the gift that keeps on giving at the moment, mate. And, you know, if you look at the things, Ben Davies, talking about signing him, he goes to Liverpool. And then you get rid of Olivier Ntcham, and hours later, Mr. Villas-Boas wakes up and goes, no, I don't like this, I want to leave. What's your opinions on that, mate?
I think it'd be fun if Andrew Villas-Boas became the next Celtic manager and Ntcham comes back. But on a serious note, I think it just, in a way, summarises Peter Lawwell's tenure at Celtic and being a bit slow in transfers. When targets seemed to be quite easy and in place, as it was with Ben Davies, that rumour was going around for over a week. Then at the last minute, it just stalls and goes to England. And if you're not got any loyalties with Celtic, of course you're going to pick Liverpool before Celtic. So I don't blame Ben Davies or anything like that. But the whole transfer window as a whole, I'm actually quite happy with Celtic's business. We did nothing, and that means we're keeping the money for the new season and hopefully the new manager. We got 11 million for Frimpong, which is quite good considering you can't cross the ball. And we got somebody in on loan from Everton. He played last night against Kilmarnock, looked half decent, but Kilmarnock's not really a test to see your abilities.
James, do you think that the Ben Davies obviously opting to go to Liverpool, is the way that they've been champions of England, it's a big team at the moment, especially in terms of their form, and with Celtic's form not being there. But do you think it's another example of, as you said, Law not managing to follow through and get the job done when it comes to transfers? Obviously, in the last episode, you said about the McGinn saga and him not being able to fork out a bit more. So do you think this is another example of that?
Potentially. I don't know the full details. Maybe Preston just wanted the money rather than a pre-contract. And if it was £2 million, which is what the news is saying is the fee, then the question is, why couldn't Celtic afford that £2 million, particularly when Frimpong just went for £11 million? But the new manager, whoever he is, might not like Ben Davies, and I'd prefer the money to be with the new manager and the new director of football if that's appointed, rather than Lennon spending for a team he's not going to be managing next season.
We take into account as well, Ben Davies will go straight into the team at Liverpool.
Into the team at Celtic. If he couldn't replace Shane Duffy, then he's not replacing even Jordan Henderson at centre back. So he was going straight into the team at Celtic.
So, Martin, I'm going to come to you next. So, with you being a Hibs fan,
yes,
how do you feel that your transfer business has done?
It's actually went decent. I think we didn't have a great deal coming in. Didn't have a great deal going out. We got in Jackson Irvine. Now, Jackson Irvine, to me, was one of the few players who I saw get the better of John McGinn while he was at Jackson Irvine was at Ross County. We got him in on free. He's played well. He's had 2 assists in the 4 games that he's played. And for me, I would love to see him on a longer term. It's only 6-month contract. I'd like to get him in long term. We've got a backup goalie, which is required in Macy, 6'7" boy from Arsenal. Cadden came in from the American leagues. Again, good player, right winger. Players going out. We had Malin went out. Malin went to Turkey, probably for a holiday. Malin was a weird player. I mean, he'd score goals. He had a great connection with the ball. It's just your team sort of played a certain way when he was playing. I don't think that's the way Jack Ross wants to play. So he is a player. I do like him. Dead balls. He'll score lots of goals wherever he goes. but it just didn't suit the style of football that Jack Ross was wanting to play. Got Gillen, who's went out on loan to Raith Rovers, which hopefully they can get above Hearts in that league. That'd be great. And I think that the biggest things with what Hibs have done this transfer window is actually keep the players that were looking to go elsewhere. So Nisbet was offered £3 million from Birmingham, and Hibs have knocked that back, and it's a lot of money to knock back, especially for a player we paid £165,000 for. But he is on a 4-year deal. He's 5 months into it. He's top. I'm not sure if he's still top goal scorer in the league. Keeping in mind that didn't count whoever scores penalties for Rangers. So, Ken, that is a good sale. That's keeping him is a massive thing, because it's difficult to get in a striker that you know is going to score goals. Another one that we kept was Porteous. Again, he was looked at by Millwall. He's somebody that I absolutely rate extremely highly. I think he'll be the centre half for Scotland, mainly because Scotland have terrible centre halves. But he's young, rising, upcoming, loves the tackle, and I think it's hilarious when he winds Steven Gerrard up. I mean, I think Hibs are doing pretty well. And their main competition now is going to be Aberdeen, and I think their best signing has been Flo the Rat Canberra.
No grudges held in.
Well, Kevin, when you've got a guy who comes to loan, I think he scored 9 goals in 14 games while he was on loan, so you spend big money on him. Doesn't score very many goals until his contract's just about up. And then when we put him on loan to Rangers, he says, "Oh, this is Rangers. I've wanted to play here my whole life. It's great. I love this here." Then Rangers punt him as well, get rid of him for Eton, and then he's back in Scotland. So I would love to be one of the fans in the stands when I think he'll actually go in the Aberdeen v Hibs game next week. So yeah, they'll love that.
Martin, on the Nisbet chat, I want to ask your opinion on the reports that he handed in a late transfer request.
Yes. So
what do you make of that? Do you think that's just a case of being linked with these big teams, it's a good opportunity for me to progress my career, or do you think it's more of a money side of things?
I've got 2 things in this. The first thing is, I think it was quite well reported that James Nisbet's father died. It was a couple of months ago. It was actually the game before we played Hearts in the semi. He missed a penalty in that game as well. I'd seen Gavin smile at that. Great. But that his dad was his personal advisor in football, and he was the one that he went to for everything. So he's not got that anymore. So it's difficult. It's his first couple of months without his dad, and you've also got to take it. I mean, everybody complains that football players are always chasing money. If me doing my job had another employer come up to me and ask me to go there to do their job for 3 times the price, I'll do it. I mean, at the end of the day, it's work. It's you can't have too much loyalty in football. The football contracts, the way they work out, you don't get very much money until you're maybe 22, 23. And then by the time you're 30, you're too old to be getting a lot of money. So you've only got that sort of 8-year gap to make all your money, especially the level of football that these footballers play. They can't play football forever, and they can't all go into coaching and punch out the work. So they've got to make their money to actually make a living for the rest of their life. Otherwise, they'll be out running pubs or driving taxis.
On that note, I'm going to come to Mitchell and Shahan now. I know that neither of you kind of have a team that you follow particularly in Scottish football, but on the transfer request kind of side of things, if you were in a position where you were a fan of a team or had a role at a club where a player or one of the better players, I'm sure Martin will agree with me in saying that about Nisbet, one of the better players who performed for your team that season, handed in a transfer request, would you want him there, or would you just think get money when we can get him?
I think I'll probably want to kind of understand his reasons. So as Martin said, maybe like he's not got that advice behind him. So maybe try to give him that advice, like show him the better way, because he is a young player, and he's trying to find out his way. And sometimes to younger people, the money is more attractive. I think to anybody, money is more attractive, because at the end of the day, it's a job. But for them to like kind of knock back that offer, I think it was knocked back, wasn't it? Did you say, Martin?
Hibs didn't want to sell him, so the owners didn't let it happen.
So I think, and then for him to request a late transfer, I think they'd need to kind of realize or find out why he wanted that move or why he wants that transfer, and then try to advise him against it and show him a better way in within Hibs.
I kind of concur with what Shahan says, but I think the timing of like transfer requests has a big part to play. Like Nisbet there, he's speculation, they've knocked him back, they've knocked back the offer, and then he's went, actually no, here it is, trying to force it through. I don't know how late into the window it was, but it's a case of he's heard the rumours. He obviously knows the offer's been made, and he's probably just thinking, this could be my chance to make it in England, because he could always, from England, where was he going? Birmingham? Are they Championship?
Yeah.
It's a pretty good step, and as you say, the money will be better. But if they came to you at the start of the window and goes, I want hands a transfer request just because they want out of the club, you'd want them out, because if they want out, they obviously don't want to be here. You just hope you get a decent amount of money for them, and you still have time to hopefully get a replacement in.
The biggest problem with Hibs had was, I still think we're short of strikers. So we've got Nisbet, Doige, Gillens went out on loan. That's kind of our only strikers, unless you see something Martin Boyle as a striker. We've got a couple of players who can play as strikers but aren't quite strikers. So to hand in a transfer request second last day of the window, you're not going to run about trying to replace them, even if you're getting 3 million to do it.
Yeah,
You should have signed Flo Canberry, mate.
Yeah. I was going to actually go back to that. Like, you look at Aberdeen and look at who they've got, like Sam Cosgrove and that go, and it's like, that's their main striker. And they've got Canberry in, but Canberry's been hit and miss. You look at it and go, why have you got him in? And it's not even a permanent replacement. It's just, let's hope we can tide this over until the summer. And it's a bit of a paper over the cracks. Unless Canberry hits the ground running and fires them above Hibs and maybe even into the second with the way Celtic are going.
4-0 victory last night.
Against Kilmarnock. Managerless Kilmarnock.
We've been on a bad run.
People criticise Shane Duffy, but he went out the team and played magnificently.
That was after the pit talk he got on here.
Probably. I'm going to go over to the other side of Glasgow and go to Bruce. So, Bruce, being a Rangers fan, seemed like they're doing the complete opposite of Celtic and seem to be building for a future under Steven Gerrard. What's your opinions on their transfer dealings this window?
Yes, so as we know, the city is blue. It's red, white and blue. All is going well. We're cruising and flying high, just like those red arrows are going to be on the last day of the season, right over the city of Glasgow. However, we've got Scott Wright in from Aberdeen on a 4.5-year deal. And do you know what I really like about Steven Gerrard is he takes like your Glenn Kamaras, and he puts some effort into them, which is good. I like. So I'm hoping that he'll work with Scott Wright. I was hoping to see Scott. I was just looking at the Rangers game there. That's why I keep tilting to the side. And I was hoping to see Scott Wright come on today for a wee run about the park, but it's not happened. So it'll be nice when he eventually gets on the pitch. But Jack Simpson from Bournemouth as well, which we've got a pretty good defensive line as it is at the moment. So to bring Jack Simpson in, is he going to contest for places in that back line? I'm not so sure.
Have you ever watched Jack Simpson play before?
He's a bit as good as Shane Duffy.
Jack Simpson? No, I've never watched Bournemouth. I've not been in touch with the English Premier League at all this season. It's something I'm going to have to
Impressive
going
as a
forward. But
They're in the championship. They're in the championship.
well, that's going well. But I'm gonna have to. I'm
Just
gonna
lost
have to.
their
I
manager.
don't know anything about him. I don't know anything about him. So that's what I mean. Do you know, will he contest for the back four? I don't know. Do you know, because I've never seen him play. And we've got a pre-contract for the summer for Nnamdi Ofoborh from Bournemouth as well. So again, I've never watched Bournemouth play, so I couldn't tell you. But yeah, no, been out, spent a bit of money, and brought some players in, which is handy. But do you know, we're playing pretty well at the moment, so long may that continue.
Bruce, do you think
Yeah.
that they need to bring in these players like right now? Like they're playing well, they've got a good, strong team. They didn't really need to bring them in. They could have waited till summer, saved some money, and bought players then.
Totally. But do you know, I think Steven Gerrard, as Gav said, you know, he's planning for the future. He's he's trying to think about next season and how he can get a decent time working with the boys. So yeah, no, I'm quite happy. But as I say, it's just, you know, as you said, he could have waited, but it's nice to have time to work with him, isn't it?
Definitely is, do you know? Oh, that was a good batter.
Gavin, we've not talked
Yes.
about your team.
No.
I saw
I
the
try not
social
to mention
media
our team too
feed
much.
on Transfer Window Day, and they had some cracking memes. But who they actually signed, I don't have a clue about. So,
Yeah, who's
how did you
an
find
arm and a
Hearts?
leg?
There's only one player that they signed that I actually had previous knowledge of in this window, and that's Gary Mackay-Steven. I think his signing, along with we've got another winger. I've got his name written down here. That's what I'm looking at. Is Gervain Castanier. We've got him from Coventry on loan. He's a Dutch winger, from what I've read, and that he's kind of. I think him and Gary Mackay-Steven are as cover for Josh Ginnelly, who we had on loan from Ipswich this season. He's said he wanted to stay, done really well, missed multiple sitters in the Scottish Cup final, though, which I'm sure James will be happy with.
Thank you.
But yeah, I think they're in for cover for him with his injuries taking him to the end of the season, unfortunately. We've also signed Aaron McEniff from Shamrock Rovers. He played against AC Milan in the Europa League qualifiers at the start of the season, and he seems to be a decent-ish player. Got him on a 2.5-year deal. And I'm going to murder this name. We've got a striker, Arman
I like
Gnangdouli. I'm going with that. He has previous playing for Blackpool, and we went for him. We were in talks with a striker from Walsall, but Walsall said they wanted to keep him, offer him a new contract. So then we signed Gnangdouli, and he scored 2 good goals in his debut. Came on as a sub, and he's 6 foot plus, he's striker. And one of the goals was a brilliant header into the top corner. So I think he's got something he can offer us. We've always been known for strong strikers recently, like Osman Sow. He scored a couple of good goals against Celtic, James.
Who?
Osman Sow.
No, I know who you're talking about. It's just a 4-0 game, and other than that, I think it's been Celtic victories every time.
Probably. It wouldn't surprise me. But no, what I found funny was that the guy from Walsall who we were trying to sign then left and went to another team. So much for Walsall from our contract. I think it was just a case that he didn't want them to come to us. But yeah, no, I think I'm quite happy with our business. Again, I think it's similar. We're trying to cover areas where we're a bit weaker in, especially with injuries, and we've not really had much strikers apart from Whiting and Boyson recently, unless you count Naismith as a striker, but not many people count Naismith as a player outside of Hearts fans and Rangers fans. So I'm quite happy and overall with Hearts' business, I think.
Now, do you think Gary Mackay-Steven signed for Hearts because of no Rivers there for him to fall into, or?
So you've told me this story, but I've never actually seen it.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think we'll move on. So we'll go south of the border now, down to England. There's been a lot of talk has been made about the lack of money that the Premier League has spent. Do you think this is due to just the COVID situation that we obviously touched on in our first episode. That link will be in the description for the first episode if you haven't had a chance to see it yet. Do you think that's the main reason, or do you think there's other reasons, like such as waiting for the summer when there'll be probably more movements made?
Well, I was reading somewhere. I think, like in the summer signings, they spent so much that I think this time round clubs didn't think they needed to spend that much. They brought in fairly quality players as well, and then obviously COVID does play a part as well. So I was reading. So last time this was the quietest window was 9 years ago, in January, and 3 years ago, Van Dijk in January was bought for 75 million. This year, the full of Premier League has spent 70 million in the January window.
Yeah.
So there's been a massive drop.
On what Shahan was saying, I was looking at the figures as well. So yeah, 70 million, as Shahan says, but I was also reading that it was 2012, the lowest spent was 86.7 million that they spent in the window. So we're lower than that. And year on year, so this time last year, the ballpark was between 218 million and 230 million. So that's year on year. Do you know?
Mm-hmm.
We've gone from 230 million down to 70 million.
Does anyone think that any certain teams have done well in terms of their signings or we say the transfer business, because obviously it's not just about signings, it's also about selling players. I know, like for myself, looking at it from a football fan's perspective, I think that Arsenal have done a great job because they have sold or should we say removed so much wage from their bill. I looked at it and it's been reported of a figure around 32.8 million a year is what they've saved themselves from getting rid of Mesut Ozil, Sead Kolasinac, Shkodran Mustafi, and Socrates Papasopoulos. I'm one for these big names tonight. Like
who was that guy?
You've also got
Socrates
and Nathan Miles that went. You've also got Bullock and Nathan Miles that left as well. So they are sort of really chopping away at taking a lot of the excess players away at Arsenal. And Arteta's there and trying to build something. Although the results aren't going there, you can see what sort of direction he's trying to get in. But I don't think they'll do much this season.
I think the signing of Odegaard and loan should help them if he plays anywhere near his form that he did for the Real Sociedad last season. I know Mitchell, you tend to watch more La Liga than myself anyway. What do you think he will be able to bring to a team like Arsenal? But of course, he's more of a winger, or has been in the past, and they've got good wingers like Saka and Pepe. Is he going to be facing competition for his place?
I think the way, like when they deployed them, they're deploying them as like a number 8, so kind of like bursting forward from the middle. But I feel like there's a lot of pressure on him, because especially he's been at Madrid for I can't know how many years, and I think he's been out on loan pretty much every year other than one. And also, yeah, he had played well at Sociedad, was probably their best player, and now he's coming into Arsenal, and I think some Arsenal fans might try and compare him to Ozil, and I don't think they're the same player. I think Odegaard will give you more in work ethic, but I think Ozil gave you more as that special pass. So I think bringing them in will help them, because I think it will give them that extra little bit that they needed. But I think with the way Arsenal are and how up and down they can be, I think it mainly depends on who they play. So we've seen with Arsenal, and as soon as they put the kids out, it's a different team for the better. I think when they put out, as Martin said, Joe Willock and Maitland-Niles, the fact they've gone on loans a bit of a weird one, because I felt Willock and Maitland-Niles were probably two of their better players in the squad, never mind just young players. But I can see how they can't fit them in with the likes of Saka running through brick walls and being their man of the match. You've got Aubameyang, who's still trying to keep happy, even though he's playing on left wing. And obviously still got Lacazette, who's dominating that number 9 role. So going forward, and then their front line, they're not struggling. But last night, okay, David Luiz, I think the red card was harsh on him, and he'll get branded because it was David Luiz. But you see that they're back their back line is still a bit susceptible at times. So I feel like they've missed a trick, especially when they sent out Salavia back on loan again.
Of course, yourself and Martin mentioned about Maitland-Niles. Do we think that West Brom, obviously in a tricky situation, got Sam Allardyce in? Do you think that he's going to manage to do anything at West Brom to help them survive the drop? That's just an open question. Anyone can pick it up.
I'd love for them to be able to do it, but nah, I can't see. I think the three that are at the bottom of the row, I can't actually see them doing enough to get out.
Nah, I think I've got the opposite sentiments to Martin. I think they deserve to go down. I think they sacked Bilic too soon. But no, I don't think their business. West Brom was weird. Like they've got they brought in Maitland-Niles, they brought in Robert Snodgrass and a couple others. And like, okay, Snodgrass experienced. Then you look at they got rid of Charlie Austin, who was one of their top strikers, went to QPR, and whatever QPR's last game was, he scored against Watford. He scored the equaliser for them, and it showed how good he can be. But for some reason, Big Sam and West Brom just didn't want to play him. So I still feel they've left themselves lacking in that attacking area, because I think they can defend well. Big Sam can organise any defence, and they've got some decent defenders. But I just don't see where the spark's going to come from. Like, you're obviously with Snodgrass and that, you're expecting, okay, set piece, put it in the top corner or whip it in and cause trouble. And they just don't get up the field enough to do that. I don't feel. I think they'll be one of the ones that do still go down.
Well, I think when it comes to Charlie Austin, Big Sam wants to build a team on work ethic. It is all about the defensive shape. And whilst Charlie Austin is prolific when given the opportunities, he's not renowned for his work rate and closing people down and pressing from the front. And this season of all seasons, when games are so congested, putting on that extra press can be the cause for victory. If the games are that tight and defensive mistakes and so on are increasing. And then I think it also links back to Arsenal and Arteta's transfer window. I think that was a very good transfer window from Arsenal. Begrudgingly, I say that. But not only did he get rid of Ozil, Mustafi, Socrates, and all those people on high wages, but they are also very well known for being lazy players. And Arteta has a vision, and it does require work ethic. There's a reason why Kieran Tierney is loved by Arsenal supporters just now, because he is the epitome of the vision that Arteta is trying to implement. And if Ødegaard has that work rate, then I think that's a very positive thing for Arsenal. And begrudgingly, whilst they still have a weak defence, Arsenal are taking a good shape, and think maybe in a couple of years they could be a team to look out for.
I'm going to say Arsenal's like trying to build a team into a better team, essentially.
James, I tell you who could do with Kieran Tierney right now, and that's possibly Celtic.
who needs Kieran Tierney when you've got Laxalt?
Right, exactly. I hope that was sarcastic.
Who needs Kieran Tierney when you've got Shane Duffy?
Everyone.
Need two Kieran Tierneys.
I tell you, Duffy gets it tight on here, eh?
I think Duffy gets it tight everywhere. Apart from in the bedroom.
Like, talking about the English Premier League now, like I was reading Graham Potter made comments obviously about Duffy, and he basically came out and said Duffy won't be getting recalled. His loan won't be ended. He wants to stay in Scotland and prove he can. Yeah, he's had a rough time of it. I just think I want to know what James's thought is. Do you think Potter's leaving Duffy up there because he's seeing how much he's struggling, or do you think he's leaving him up there because he's like, my squad's fine, I don't want to bring anyone back in, because I don't think they did much business at all in the window.
They signed one player,
Moises Caicedo.
Yeah, and he's supposed to be a good talent. I've never watched him play, but only Celtic this season could have a player on loan who can't send back, and then send a player on loan and sack the manager for that team. Whatever is happening at Parkhead this season, I don't want to know. It's just bizarre. We went from so good a time to just a complete catastrophe. But I think
It's like,
if you're Brighton, first of all, Graham Potter tries to play it out the back. Shane Duffy's not that type of centre back. He's not even a centre back, but he's certainly not a ball playing centre back.
He's probably that guy that huds up in the terracing. That's about as close to football pitch you should get in the terraces.
No, he was supposed to be a good defender for teams that whip the ball into the box and just go and head it away. He heads it upward. About it. I mean, you've got Barkas and Bain and Hazard having a lottery to see who gets picked every week, and they all flap at the ball. It's not a great scenario, but why would Graham Potter want a defender back who's not going to play and doesn't suit the style of play, so he's not even going to be a backup when Celtic are covering the wages?
the thing you're saying about your keepers flapping, James, how's it feel having 3 keepers that can't even catch COVID?
One of them was
Which is funny considering the rest of the team tried it.
But no, seriously though, speaking of keepers, sorry James, on you go.
Well, people might laugh when they see when I say this, but I think there is a goalkeeper in Barkas. I think what we were talking about in the last episode about adapting to different cultures, Greece is completely different from Scotland, and his English is okay, but not great. And he's came over here for a lot of money, so there's a bit of pressure on him for that. And he can't really do anything other than train and live in his house. So he's got no time to get used to his defence and like their personalities and all that. I mean, Shane Duffy's in front of you, you're not going to have any confidence. So it's that kind of thing. The keepers have got no confidence, so the defence is struggling, and the defence is struggling, therefore the keeper have no confidence. And there's no big personality there. Ayer's trying his best, but when you've got the other people not playing up to it, it's going to it's not going to work. So Barkas, I think he should be given the rest of the season. We've had Bain before we bought Barkas in because Bain wasn't good enough. Hazard, well, his goalkeeping is explained by his name. And
Nice.
Barkas, he's got Champions League experience. I remember playing AEK Athens at Parkhead, and I actually turned to my dad and went, "Who's their keeper? He's played a blinder today." And it's Barkas. So he has got Champions League experience. He's done it against Celtic, so I know he can play a good game at Parkhead, just can't be in a Celtic strip.
You always seem to drift back onto Celtic, don't we?
I know.
Well, we have the topic just now.
Is this the anti-Celtic cop podcast?
James, just to, you know, I can't believe as a Rangers fan, I can't believe as a Rangers fan, I'm going to believe kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? I agree, that's it. With a Celtic fan here, but I agree with a Celtic fan, but I totally agree when you said he couldn't do anything, and you should have just left it at that.
Anyway, back onto the subject. So
to keep on the line of goalkeepers.
Okay.
And
I think I'm the only one who's played goalkeeper in this group chat.
I actually won a Scottish Cup medal as a goalie. Sorry.
There you go. I won a European medal as a goalkeeper, so there you go.
Let's not get the boxing gloves out, girls. All right, James Bundy played against Christoph Eriksen at one point when he was like young, so let's not go there, okay? So keep in line the goalkeepers.
And kept a clean sheet.
A big surprise signing that I thought of, we're going along the lines of Mitchell mentioned Potter and Brighton. Matt Ryan from Brighton on loan to Arsenal. What do you think about that one, especially after Arteta got rid of Martinez in the summer?
I think it's smart considering Leno got sent off last night.
How's your fantasy team looking?
I'm still going to be above you in the league. Suex just scored.
From the point of Matt Ryan, it's the weirdest one ever. I'm sure I read somewhere that he said he wanted to leave because he wanted first team football. They went on loan to Arsenal to sit on the bench. Okay, granted, Lionel got sent off last night, so he's going to get his chance. But we've seen it before with Martinez. Do you think Arteta's going to stick to him, or do you think he will just go back to Leno as soon as he's available?
I think if Martinez had been given a chance as soon as Leno came back to being fit, then yes, you would go there and think, right, I can have a couple of games, and then the coach will have a bit of faith in me, and I'll play. Arteta's made it clear Leno's is number one. There's no point going there for the 2 games and to sit on the bench the rest of the time.
Martinez was in goal for the FA Cup, wasn't he?
Yep, won the FA Cup now.
Painful. We didn't need to remind him of that bit, Martin. That's painful enough as it is. But yeah, you look at Martinez now at Villa. He's single-handedly keeping them in games at times, and you look at it and you go,
"Not tonight, Mitchell.
Not tonight."
Yeah,
not tonight.
He was actually playing well until I turned off. So,
Brighton's beating Liverpool.
Yeah, 1-0.
I'm glad this podcast goes out tomorrow.
That's one thing I wanted to discuss as well, is that we're saying about Matt Ryan going on loan, Maitland-Niles and Willock going on loan. I did a little bit of digging into facts and figures as you guys did as well, and there's been 100 players sent out on loan by Premier League clubs in this window alone. Mm-hmm. Do we think that this is a new trend that we're seeing, trying to get younger players experience? And of course, like Chelsea, if you're a Chelsea fan, obviously Mitchell and Chan can comment on this as well, is that Chelsea have always had a dubious loan system. We'll say dubious as opposed to, yeah. So, but do you think this is a rising trend now, where you're seeing a lot more teams sending players out on loan, and I think we're seeing a lot more first team players going out on loan.
It's a requirement though now. I think the under-23 league isn't up to case to have players get fit enough, fast enough, and strong enough. There's no point in basically you're playing against laddies, whereas if you put your players who are going to be the players, every coach knows the players that are going to actually make it. So they'll get put into the championship or they'll put in the lower league because they need to be playing against men, not against under-23s. I think they threw away the reserve league and turned it into an under-23 league to try to improve the youth football aspect of things. That's a great concept. It doesn't work. Then I'd actually like to have a podcast just on youth football, because the way everything's set up, you need to be going out on loan, and you feel sorry for, like, if players are going on loan from Arsenal to West Brom, Nathan Miles. What does that say to the West Brom's youth academy? Because they're not good enough, but you're taking another team's youth academy to go and play for that team's youth academy. It's loan is a culture, because that is required now. You need to have games, you need to be playing top level, and it's extremely difficult to get match sharp unless you're doing that.
It's also the economics of it. If you've got a first team standard player who's not good enough for your first team, if they're not playing, they're going to decrease in value. So you punt them out on loan, maybe do some damage to your rivals, and at the same time the player's value increases so you can sell them on. So in a culture where you do a gamble with signings, you have director of football's chief scouts recommending players after watching them maybe 3-4 times. They're gambling on them to see if they work. And the money in England, if it's under £10 million, you're not registering it as a big transfer. So there's going to be gambles that fail, and that in itself creates a loan market, because there's teams below that who might benefit from these players but don't have £10 million to spend.
And I think at the moment, with the transfer window that we're seeing just now, there's also a small chance now and again to cut the wage budget.
Yeah.
So it's more than 2. So
I just
yeah,
from when you started speaking again.
there's a chance to cut wage budget there as well. So, when you take the economics that James was talking about, the game time that Martin was talking about, and the cutting the wage budget, for some of these clubs, it's a win-win situation, isn't it?
That pause there, he was going to say, "Do you know?" But he thought about it.
Yeah.
He did.
I thought about it.
But it's the same in Scotland with Celtic and Rangers, although we're going back to Celtic again. That you take the players that are considered elite, they need to have game time. So all your players who are almost making it for Celtic and Rangers need to be going out on loan, play games, and it happens everywhere.
This is your meaning, like in Cham.
Yeah, and Cham, who just wanted to get off the wage bill, I think he wanted to get rid of the manager.
Yeah, he wanted to get
I found funny
away from Lennon to a manager that treats him better.
Yeah,
and then he funny
because and even after Villas-Boas quit, he still said, "Yeah, Villas-Boas was better than Lennon."
From what I found funny is that he went from a team where the fans were rioting outside the stadium from a defeat in the cup against Ross County to a team whose fans broke onto their training ground and started lighting the pitches ablaze. He must be a fan of the hardcore fans, eh?
Hi.
There's another factor in loans, and it's something that Celtic don't do enough, but I'll keep off Celtic and link it to Minamino, who's just went from Liverpool to Southampton. Loans can also be sent to players who need to adapt to the culture of the league and send them to teams who play a similar style. And there's the joke that Southampton is the academy for Liverpool. And Mane, Van Dijk, and maybe more, but those are the two that come to mind. But Liverpool's kind of done an inverse of that, which is they've bought the player directly from the other team. I think it was Salzburg, and then they've sent them to Southampton on loan. Southampton play a high press, a high tempo, similar to Liverpool, and I actually think Minamino has the potential to be the best signing in the transfer window in the Premier League. Even though it's 6 months, I think if it works, it could be an absolute blinder by Southampton, and it could be a blinder for Liverpool next season.
I heard that Minamino, the only way that he was going to get into the first team was to play well for Southampton, because that's the only way he's going to get signed for Liverpool again. That's the only way anybody gets in the Liverpool team. You have to play well for Southampton, then you get in the Liverpool team.
Right, taking away from loans a little bit, like Liverpool got two centre backs, like Ozan Kabak and Ben Davies.
Yes.
Do you think they're the kind of stabilizers for like a set defence now?
They're a stopgap.
The last kind of Liverpool game that I was watching, Klopp was saying, or somebody asked Klopp that he'd had 12 different settings in 21 different games. So, do you think they're the kind of settlers now? Like they're going to settle that defense?
No chance. They'll be in there until somebody else gets fit.
Yeah.
Like
it's
Dijk
definitely a quick fix until you get their injury issues sorted. I saw a similar stat to yourself, Shahan, about the defensive partnerships that they've had with Van Dijk and Henderson and Fabinho having to fill in at centre back, and it is just a quick fix, and I mean it's an easy payday for Kabak and Davies.
Yeah.
And it's as we said at the top of the show, where Davies rejecting Celtic, he knows he's definitely going to get games at Liverpool at the moment because of the injuries.
Mm. So it's more like for a 6-month exposure, essentially, to make themselves better players. Yeah.
They're there, and there's no way. I don't think Ben Davies has got a lot of rep for being one for the future. Obviously, Celtic have been certain him for a while. Klopp was aware of him for a little bit. He may well be one for a couple of years' time. But Gomez, he's a young English guy. He's going to be playing. Matip, reasonably young, and I can't see Van Dijk ever being on the bench. Every time he's fit, he'll play.
Mm-hmm.
I think Kabak, I can see him doing a similar route to Minamino. He comes in January. In the summer, I wouldn't be surprised if he goes out on loan.
Like, still talking about Liverpool, when you look at Davies and Kazabak, yeah, they are the short-term fix for now because Klopp's planning for Van Dijk, Gomez, and Matip all to be out for the rest of the season. So they needed something in to stop it being, I think it was Henderson and Nat Phillips tonight. And no offence to Nat Phillips and Reece Williams, they've not been the strongest. And you look at the prices of them. Like Ben Davies, was it half a million? If that?
2 million. Celtic could have forked out 500,000, but not 2 million.
1.7 up front from what I've read.
Oh, it was 1.1.
With the remainder in add-ons, yeah.
Oh, right. So I must have just read the add-on. But you look at that, and like as James said, like that's nothing to the big teams. And then I'm put this on the flip side of it. You look at the outgoings. You mentioned about Frimpong, a right back who can't cross the ball, goes for 11.5 million to Leverkusen. But then if I was to say yesterday, they also bought Demarai Gray from Leicester and Timothy Fosu-Mensah from Man United. You would expect 10 million, maybe about the same ballpark. You wouldn't expect both of them to go for a combined of 4 million. And you just look at it and you go, some teams like United, well, Leicester, Gray wasn't getting a game. They've just got him off the wages. If you look at United and Fosu-Mensah, it's a decent young talent. You kind of question why they've let them go for that low. You'd also imagine they've got a buyback clause in there somewhere, but still, it's a low amount of money for especially a team like Man United to demand.
I think that's one thing about a lot of teams when they're selling younger players. If they don't have a buyback clause in, there's normally a sell-on percentage. You saw that with the sale of Frimpong, where Man City received a little bit of it, a decent whack of it, to be fair, because it's profit.
50%.
It was the same in the summer from Hearts' perspective. We sold Aaron Hickey to Bologna, and Celtic got some money from that. So it was 25% from that, if I'm right in remembering. So I think that's a much bigger, more common trend that we're seeing in a lot of football when the sort of academy graduates are coming through, and they've got those clauses in which kind of helps save the selling team a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Celtic could be looking forward to a wee payday in the summer then with Dembele to Athletic.
20%.
Yeah, I'm still waiting on Jordan McGinn getting sold to Man U. In fairness, I mean, when Stephen Fletcher left Hibs for Wolves, I think, when he got sold on again from there, Hibs made more money from the second sale than they did from the original sale.
Fair enough. So I think quickly we're going to go into two different little of our roundtable segments we did in the last episode. The first one I wanted to ask is the predictions for the league table. Now, instead of going through for the Premier League table, because I don't think anyone's going to have the balls to turn around and say that Rangers aren't going to win the SPL this year. James, dry your eyes, mate. So in the English Premier League, I'm going to do it. I'm not going to ask you all the same thing. I'm going to say, James, we'll start with you, James, first, all right? Who do you think will finish in the bottom three for the English Premier League?
I'm going for Sheffield United, bottom of the league, Fulham 19th, and West Brom 18th.
Same three, different order then.
And we'll go with Martin. So, top four in European positions.
Oh, top four.
Top four in European positions, yeah. So up to, I think, a seventh, isn't it?
I believe it's seventh, yeah.
For the Europa League positions as well.
I'm going Manchester United because I have belief. It's Man U or Man City, and I can't say Man City, no. So Man City, I'll put second. Liverpool, I'm even being generous to say third, and that's only because they've got two centre halves. Leicester are up there. I'm actually going to be, I reckon Everton will be up there. Everton will be up to fifth. And I'm going to put Villa at sixth and Spurs at seventh. Yes, Chelsea aren't in it because they swapped manager. If Lampard had been there, he'd be up there too.
we'll ask
Go on, tell me more.
Shahan, who's getting relegated.
I had who's getting relegated?
Yeah.
So that bottom three then, isn't it?
Yeah.
So Sheffield United, West Brom, and Fulham are the exact same, but exact order
different order.
just now. Yeah, Fulham 18th, West Brom 19th, and Sheffield United 20th.
Fair enough. I think we'll go to Mitchell next. So I'm going to ask you the same question I asked Martin.
Europe.
Yep.
I think champions are going to be City. They're somehow managing to pull out wins. It baffles me how at times. I think United will be a close second. Again, they're pulling out wins. I think the result like yesterday was a fluke. Third, I'm going to go for Leicester. I thought they'd struggle without Vardy, and I think tonight's game and the last game they're actually coping pretty well without him. So they've I think they'll not be as free scoring, but they'll still get it. Fourth, I'm tempted to go Everton. I just don't see, and I think the next, so that's my top four, and then the next year, I think it'll be Liverpool, Spurs, and Chelsea. I think Villa are good, but we've seen tonight, West Ham, they've not held it together. They have the.
Watching some of the game, Lingard's made a massive difference there.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yeah.
Two goals today.
Young up and coming prospect right there in the 27-year-old Jesse Lingard.
I just don't. I think when you look at the teams, like you look at Liverpool of last year and year before, it doesn't matter what a team did to them, they couldn't. They would always score. They'd always get something in a game. But you've seen it tonight against Brighton. Teams are putting low blocks on them, and they're just looking lost. So I still think they're still good enough. They'll get fifth. They'll be just outside the top four. I think Everton will come. I think Everton, if they get a run with Calvert-Lewin scoring and with Josh King as like a backup, I think they'll be able to play their style more and kick on. And Spurs and Chelsea at 6 and 7, I think that's a toss-up. I think it just comes down to Chelsea gets Havertz or Werner to start firing, and how Spurs cope without Kane.
I'm going to go to Bruce, and I'm going to say the same thing I've said to Shahan and James at bottom three, mate.
It's a bone picture, It's just going to be the same three mixed around in a lottery machine and see who comes out. I reckon Sheffield United will be last, and then it's going to be. I reckon that West Brom might push Fulham for 18th, but it could end up an unchanged picture.
3-0 lottery machine sounds like the Celtic goalkeeper.
See, if you were asking top four for me, I would have put Chelsea as fourth. Just saying.
See, I've got Chelsea as fifth.
I think see for the bottom. I know I didn't ask, but the bottom three. I think it will be the bottom three just because like the two above them are Newcastle and Burnley, and they just seem to have just enough to stay out of it. But I definitely don't think Sheffield will be bottom. They seem to have the best form of the three at the moment, so I think they'll probably be scraping it. But anyway, Gavin, we've not asked you yet.
Yeah.
What would I'm going to give you.
Yeah. What's your bottom three? No. What's your top 6, 7?
Gav will have Chelsea first, won't he?
The way this season's been going, depending on how Tuchel performs, that's a possibility. But no, I don't think I can't see it. I do think City will win the league, mainly because I don't want Man United to win the league. Mainly because of the same reason I don't want Celtic to win the Premier League this year, because the fans will never go on stop going on about it. So, I think that Man United will come second. Liverpool aren't performing well enough, so I think I'm being nice to give them third. I do think Leicester will get fourth. Depending on how Spurs cope with the loss of Kane will depend on where they finish. So
Kane's supposed to be back next week.
Until his next injury.
Kane's back next week, according to Mourinho.
From both
but Mourinho also said that Son was out at the start of the season.
And then he scored 2 goals and harmed your
and
fantasy
cost me
football.
points in my fantasy football. Nah, I'm going to say that fifth will be Everton. I think they might just do enough to hold on to it.
After that
Where's the
defeat
love
against
of
Newcastle.
Everton coming from?
We're just expecting us to Spurs it.
Where is this love of Everton coming from?
Ancelotti.
They
the Chelsea
were
connection,
absolutely awful at the weekend.
They were.
I think
Against
Josh
Newcastle.
King could come in and do a trip for them.
Oh,
Like
but
he
it's
seems to.
Not up front where they're struggling. It's the central midfield. They just got no pace and urgency. And
Do you know who
any
they should
team
have
that puts a
signed?
press is just going to be
Do you know who they should have got for centre midfield?
Who?
Mitchell.
Olivier and Cham. I'm going to say in sixth place will be Chelsea. I'm going to say it Tuchel will do his magic with Havertz, maybe. Werner definitely. Give him a wee rub and pat in the back and say, Wunderbar, you go, kid. And I'm going to say Spurs for 7th.
I've got
And
Spurs
then-
in 7 too.
We'll go for the last little bit for another wee round table. This I'm going to try and save a bit of time. I want a name and in 10 seconds why, reasoning for your answer. Who has been the best signing of the January transfer window? And we're going to start off with Shahan.
So Jesse Lingard, and he wasn't getting played enough in Man U. He wasn't showing his potential, which obviously he is now at West Ham. So there we go. That's it.
Okay, Bruce.
I'm excited about Amad Diallo coming from Atlanta to Man United. £20 million, 18-year-old, pacey, and ambidextrous, right foot, left foot, job done.
Bit more than 10 seconds there, but I'll let you off. Martin.
Jackson Urban.
Why is that go Canberra?
What, the
No
Rats?
reasoning,
Listen,
just
the
Jackson
Rats.
Irvine.
Yes, if we can get him a long contract, I'd be extremely happy.
We'll go with James.
Minamino, he's never lost 9-0, but more seriously, he suits the style of play for Southampton. I think it's a good deal for both teams.
Mitchell.
We'll go Josh King. He's only going to be a bit part player, but he's similar to Dominic Calvert-Lewin, so they can still play that way, and they've got rid of their big lump of Tosin up front.
And he's going to seal 5th place for Everton.
Maybe, who knows?
I didn't even have Everton in my top 7.
There you go, see.
And I'm going to go with who I think will be the best signing for January, and that's going to be Willian Jose. I feel like he's going to give Wolves a good opportunity to kick on, especially with Jimenez's injury, and he's a decent enough player at Sociedad, so it'll be good to see him, I think.
I noticed you didn't say Stevens. Mikael Stevens. Kai Stevens.
You can't even say it, Martin. So why would Gav say it? And that was an easy day.
I think he needs time to adapt to the game in Scotland after being in America for so long. Or for
I was going to
was.
quickly add something to James saying he didn't have Everton in his top 7. At the start of the season, you had Celtic winning 10 in a row, so this is why we didn't listen to you. Do you know what I mean?
And Celtic won in the previous 9 seasons, and the predictions worked well. On off.
Asterisks.
8-1.
So I think that's it for tonight. Nice wee transfer special. I hope I think it was really good to hear everyone's point of view, and again another good wee chat. Hope you all enjoyed it, guys.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, that's good.
I'm going to go and try and take "Do you know" out of my vocabulary.
I think all that's left to say is what was that?
Martin just did the
Martin just counting with his fingers.
Oh, right, okay.
This is because you're a Hibs fan. You can't count past 10. Do you know what I mean?
Wait a minute. I can count all the way to 21 with my hands in my pockets and sandals.
I was going to say Celtic can't even reach 10.
I think all that's left to say is to once again thank everyone for tuning in, all the views we've had, the follows and the likes on Facebook and the Twitter. Please like, comment and subscribe on this video, and do give us a follow and a like on Facebook and Twitter. Any feedback is welcome, of course. We're pretty new to this, but we're here to try and have fun along the way.